tragic moments in history. The abandoned citizens of Alesia. In 52 BC, Gaul was set alight. Julius Caesar's legions were facing an uprising across the region, which threatened to erase gains from 6 years of hard-fought campaigning. The revolt was led by Vercingetorix, a young Arverni nobleman who was able to match Caesar's own cunning and determination. The two would clash decisively at the Siege of Alesia, where the ultimate fate of both sides hung in the balance. Overshadowed by these massive historical headlines would be the tragic tale of the city's citizens, who found themselves abandoned by both leaders. Between a rock and a hard place. Vercingetorix and approximately 80,000 of his soldiers occupied the hilltop town. They were quick to send out messages calling for help before the 12 Roman legions with 60,000 men were in position. Caesar elected to starve out the defenders and established a set of encircling fortifications meant to completely cut off their connection to the outside world. Inside Alesia, the Gauls were in a terrible position. They had limited supplies which would quickly be depleted, but had no idea when or even if a relief force would arrive. Their only option was to find a way to make supplies last as long as possible, and hope that this bought enough time for reinforcements to break the siege. To fail in this measure would mean the end of the revolt and the ultimate fall of Gaul. Vercingetorix first began by collecting all the grain in town and establishing a system of rations. However, as the days rolled by, it became increasingly obvious that the math was not adding up. More desperate measures would have to be taken to survive the blockade. A Gallic council was called to discuss the matters. It was resolved that all those whose age or bodily infirmities incapacitated them from active service should immediately quit the city. The yet more draconian measure of resorting to cannibalism was kept only as a last resort. At the same time, the legions also faced their own dilemma. Scouts reported that a massive Gallic relief force of around 120,000 was indeed on its way. The Romans were now under the very real threat of being surrounded themselves. To meet this army, Caesar had a second set of outer-facing walls built just behind his first line of fortifications. It would be a fight for their lives, as defeat would likely mean slaughter. Even if some managed to escape back to Rome, this would be the political death sentence for their leader. Caesar was not about to let this happen. Both sides were determined it would be victory at all costs. The lives of the non-combatants would be spent to achieve this end. The fate of Alesia's citizens. The women, children, elderly and infirm were banished from Alesia. They shuffled in a long column towards the enemy's lines, hoping that they might be met with the clemency Caesar had shown in the past. However, the general could be every bit as cruel as he was merciful. When the citizens of Alesia arrived outside the Roman lines, their piteous appeals fell on deaf ears. Granting them safe passage would break the blockade, allowing information to flow between the two Gallic forces and creating an opportunity for an attack. The other option of taking the civilians as prisoners was not viable. Though they might fetch a good price in the slave markets, neither food nor guards could be devoted to secure them as prizes of war, given the looming threat. Caesar gave the order that none were to be admitted. The citizens of Alesia were now utterly and completely abandoned. They could neither pass through the Roman lines nor return to their own. Both generals were ironclad in their determination, unwilling to take the strategic penalty of providing aid. The populace had become a pawn in a larger game, and so they remained trapped in no man's land by two leaders facing off in a battle of wills. Here they were left to starve in full view of both armies.
So I hope you appreciated this short form look into Invicta content. Now if you want to see our full length documentaries, you can head on over to the main channel. And either way, I'll see you in the next one.